What up, Hitmaker Nation? We are back. Do you like that? We are back for the brand new season. So this is the audio simply extracted from a video of a conversation I had with Mr. Jason Ogden this past Saturday evening. In the past, I did a lot more editing. This is fairly unedited, but that's also the reason why there's been no show for the last 10 and a half months. So this is pretty raw, just edited for flow. Hope you sit back and enjoy. Hello, everyone. Can you see me? We appreciate your patience here. How are you? The show has already been, well, no, I suppose there were 2 10-minute episodes last week. I was about to say the show's already been longer, but you're getting about as much of a show at this point. So I'm here this evening. Thank you for tuning in. To talk to my dear friend, to speak with my dear friend Jason Ogden about this book, Shaky. He's going to need a minute, but he's only a couple minutes away, so I suppose I'll talk to you. Why not? How are you? You're enjoying this pandemic? We need a text line so that we can take viewers' calls and things. I can't have a band leader, but my hope for the show is that we develop segments a bit more. There's a little bit more rapport, bouncing things off of people. I'm still learning the technology, but this platform is pretty neat. Anyhow, this is just the pre-show. Don't get used to it. Still learning. It's a little bit like DJing. You have to set things up in the queue spot over here, and then you have to make them live. So it's possible to, you're DJing, you have your headphones on, and you just have made this sick mix. And then you take your headphone off to check how it sounds. And this is like DJs who don't play out. And it's not playing through the speakers in the room. No one can, it's only in your headphones. We're gonna be right back, folks. Can you hear me?
How's it going, man?
It's going great. How you doing?
So check it out. I got this, just rocking this in honor of our conversation.
Where did you get that now?
You know what? I think I got this at Second Spin.
Is it a recent purchase or a new one?
No, I got this probably 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I was super curious about it. This is way before I read the book, but I was super curious about it because it had such a reputation of being such a dark album and being part of a trilogy called The Ditch, which was a really dark period in his life.
Yeah, I knew that about it, and I hadn't listened to it because I thought I listened to the first song once or something and thought it was like, whoa, this is too, it's like stark Neil Young, and I can't get into it right now, but I hadn't listened past the first song.
Yeah.
But it's really good.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. It is. It's really dark.
It's really dark, but there's such prose, too.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, I have this weird problem where I can't distance myself because I read about it and I knew the story before I listened to it. So I wonder if somebody heard it not knowing the story, if they would find it as dark.
I don't know. The author of the book certainly made a case for that album. All right, hang on. I'm going to do something here.
Okay. I'm going to have a drink.
Hey, we're back, everybody, with a very special guest, Mr. Jason Ogden. Jason Ogden, oh my God, I just replaced you with a
2 weeks in the making.
It was supposed to be a graphic that says special guest.
That's all right.
Special guest, but you still have to. It's like I can put it in the thing, and then I think it's happening. But that's beautiful. How are you doing, sir? Let's give the people a proper introduction.
No, I see special guest. That's great.
Uh-huh.
It's like we're on CNN.
You're my special guest, my friend. Yeah, if you were on CNN, you know what it would be?
That makes me the pundit?
If we were on CNN, it would be this.
Fake news.
Oh! Failing.
That's weird though, man, because sad. I feel like you can, like, CNN has this issue. But no! Yes, CNN has its issues, but I don't think in this day and age, they're not the fake news.
You know what? I think it's a big...
Okay, fair enough.
You must be saying that over the 5G network, man.
I think I'm like, is there like a 1.5G? Because I think that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I wonder which one my iPhone 5S can actually support.
I don't know. I see like you are super clear and like you're flowing perfectly, but when I see my thing here, it's like way behind.
Is it choppy? My upload speed is actually too slow because I'm in the basement.
I'm way up like on the 3rd floor, so I feel like I'm far away from our router, so that's...
Oh, yeah,
we're lucky we're getting anything.
For the people at home who are thinking about attempting this, you need a plugged-in connection, they say, is the best.
Yeah, I would love to get like a second router up here with like a hardwired, but that's another episode.
I know that.
And we can talk about retaining walls in another episode.
We're talking about retaining walls, and you will say this.
Ask me anything. I'm a retaining wall expert at this point. If it's made of stone, I got the bone. Breaking news, yes. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're here with St. John's leading retaining wall expert.
This is what I do now in the post-COVID world. I hang out my backyard and I work on stone walls. Yes. Oh, yes, on stone walls.
Would you allow this man to fix your stone wall?
No, you don't want me on your property. I'll get too close. I'll get way too close. I promise you. I can coach you via the internet through fixing or building a retaining wall, but you don't want me on your property.
And then this is what you'll feel like.
Yeah.
You just won big, actually.
Oh,
right,
shit. When does my prize arrive?
I was talking to the viewer.
Oh, the viewer won big. All right.
You and I, this is just costing us our time and money.
Hey, I got no place to be. Yeah, I got no place to be. I'm going to be in my house anyway.
Well, exactly. That's the idea. That's why I wanted to do this, because we are all home alone, and I thought it could be a fun thing to do. I used to do a podcast, and you can just point your camera at yourself and talk.
We're all home alone. We're all hitmakers. We're all winners.
That's right. I feel like I ought to play the host a little bit. So normally on the podcast, I would give people a bit of an intro. Or you feel like you got to be like the David Letterman or Jimmy Kimmel or something. Or I would be Fallon. Woo! I would love to, because I would love for Questlove to be sitting right over there and be my band leader. But that's the only reason.
I got a pick downstairs I can put in my hair if you want. That will help you.
Can you play the drums in my basement?
I can play the drums in your basement, but it's not going to be as well as Questlove.
Yeah.
Can't do it. I'm sure Questlove is probably even a better guitar player than I am.
Oh, I don't know about that. But I just don't know. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are here with Mr. Jason Ogden this evening. He is a preeminent St. John songwriter. We first met when I was playing in, maybe it was Glory, Glory, Man United, or maybe it was Grade 7 Push Fight. Like, I think the first show that we played together was at Chandler's in Sydney. Does that make sense? At like a Gobble Fest or something?
Yeah. That was the Friends theme bar, which was very random.
Yeah, Chandler's on the wall in the Friends theme, or in the Friends font.
Yeah. That was really bizarre. We didn't know it was a Friends theme bar until we got there. Like in Sydney, a bar called Chandler's, you just think, okay, like you don't make the connection.
How would you?
Cape Breton. Are you drinking a martini?
What's that?
Are you drinking a martini?
Oh, I'm drinking. Yes, I'm drinking a refined drink here in my parlor, my boudoir. Oh, I'm gonna actually. Yeah, this is what you are, the audience member that's been on the screen the whole time. You have won. Now, you can just kick back and relax. You don't have to keep letting people know about it. We get it. You're a winner. Yes, I'm having a fancy drink in my boudoir.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Is it really a martini though?
No, it's tequila, and what I'm told is it's a champagne glass.
Okay.
So it's like an old-timey champagne glass, which to me, I always thought champagne glasses were the flute. Which I've also drank tequila out of. But this I really like because it feels like the amount that you would put in a shot glass in this feels substantial and like kind of classy.
Yeah.
And I was aiming to bring a touch of class to.
And you've done it, sir. Bravo. You have done it.
I'm glad you recognize that. Thank you.
Well, the Masterpiece Theater, like leather chair helps as well.
Well, we're here to discuss some masterpieces this evening.
Yeah.
As you were showing us your vinyl copy of Tonight's the Night earlier. What year did that come out? I guess it came out in 75, didn't it? But it was recorded before On the Beach.
That's a great fact, man. That 75. Let's see if the record proves you right.
I think I've got that right.
So the actual cardboard sleeve on the back does not have the date. Oh, yes, you're right. 75. You got it.
Well, yeah, I'm going on like Spotify data or whatever, like which year each thing was released, because it was like bang, 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 bang. Like Neil Young and Everybody Knows This Is Nowhere are both 69. 70 was like Crosby, Stills, Nash. 71 was maybe after the gold rush. 72 is Harvest. 73 is the live one. What's that called?
Time
Fades Away.
about Time Fades Away, yeah.
Yeah. Then On the Beach, then Tonight's the Night. But Tonight's the Night was recorded before On the Beach. It was just like too dark and weird because they wanted him to put out Homegrown, which I learned from reading that book.
Okay. So you have a remarkable grasp of the dates. I'm terrible with dates. Like I can't even.
Normally I'm not.
I'd be hard pressed to tell you dates I put out albums.
Yeah, it like normally like years that I've experienced, I don't think I remember, but years. This is literally from like the last few days going through and just looking at them on the Spotify because like trying to figure out the chronology of it.
I went through years ago. This is probably 6 or 7 years ago now. One of the things that like when I'm at work, I constantly have headphones on and I'm listening to music. And first it was Groove Shark. Do you remember Groove Shark?
Yes.
Yeah. And then Spotify. But I would listen. I would dig into like whole discographies of artists. Like I did Billy Joel, I did Bruce Springsteen, but I did Neil Young over like obviously with Neil Young. It's like a couple of weeks where you're listening nonstop from 9 to 5 at your desk. Yeah. But I listened to every album that was on Spotify, or maybe it was Groove Shark at the time. And I made a note of the songs that were good. Mm-hmm. And I downloaded them and made this huge playlist of the best Neil Young songs. And I've kept it up since then with the new albums and other albums. But I think, so I have this current playlist still going on my iPod, and it's like 87 songs out of all those albums that are good.
That are the ones you want to listen to?
The ones I would listen to again and again. Because, like, if you think about, I forget which album it is, but like,
do you have something from every album on it?
I don't know. There may be albums I missed. Like,
what do you think of Colorado?
Again, it's like dates. I'm going to be hard pressed to remember certain album titles. I remember Landing on Water. Landing on Water might have been one I didn't get a song from.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense, though, because that's the thing. It's like you would listen to it because I popped it on. Like I listened to a few songs off of it once, and it's one that's like you see the record around, and I know people have had it, and Steve Jordan plays drums on it, but it's like, yeah, I wouldn't see a song you need coming off of that one.
Yeah, but it's one of his most like, and there's a few of them in this period, but this is one of his most 80s albums where he.
Yeah, I would say so. It's like pretty like it's like sounds like the Police almost in a way, like in terms of the production, but like heavier, or like the Police / the Rolling Stones of that era. Yeah.
And it's funny because like if you think about an album like Trans, where he got a lot of shit for going too far into the synthesizers and the vocoder, but there's a lot of really good songs on that album compared to Landing on Water.
That's what Robert Christgau said. I was reading like reviews of the different albums just to kind of get some perspectives.
So when I first started, like when I was younger, I hated Neil Young and everything he stood for. Like I was a punk through and through, and I didn't have time for these guitar gods wanking off with their 70s guitar licks or whatever.
That's funny, man. I always liked him. There were other ones that I felt that like Bob Dylan. I was like, that's old and lame. Rolling Stones, like so fucking old and lame.
Oh, all that shit. I hated it.
But Neil Young I always liked.
No, I never liked Neil Young, and I will admit that in the 90s I got into Ragged. Is it Ragged Glory? What's the one with on Broadway and Rockin' in the Free World?
Oh, is that Freedom?
Yeah, I got into Freedom. He was on Saturday Night Live, and it was like so unhinged that I really appreciated it.
Yeah.
And I've always liked that album, and I still like it. But that was the only Neil Young album I ever appreciated as a man previous to my 30s. In my late 30s and 40s now, I started to like appreciate music like that more, and I really dug into Neil Young, and now I'm like way into it. But it took me I had to be in my late 30s to like be like, all right, I'll accept this and really give it a go.
So what changed?
I think it might be part of being a guitar player, a guy who plays guitar and who's just like, maybe started getting more drunk and experimenting with edibles and wanting to expand my guitar playing in a different sort of way.
Yeah. You start to experience different, or like, see different things, have a
Yeah.
different perspective.
Yeah. And I wanted, like, there's a part of me that would go home at night after drinking all night and not be tired because I don't sleep well. And I got this really great set of headphones, some great O's, and I wanted to listen to something long and indulgent. And I found a lot of Crazy Horse stuff that sort of fit that bill. And that's kind of what really sort of got me into it.
Funny. Yeah. Cause it's like, for me, it was like different. Cause I knew the long songs were a thing, but I didn't really get it, or like, and because that's not part of your world, like similarly, like coming from like punk, where everything is like short and fast. So I think that I would have, even when I would have gravitated to slow songs, they still would have been like pop songs.
Yeah.
Like I remember Harvest was the first album that I had by Neil Young, which is just like, as a kid, it's like I don't know if it's like whatever album of where there's one, right, of a particular artist. But like really just from the radio. But I remember like Rockin' in the Free World being pretty into that, and that tune Downtown too that I kind of liked. I just liked anything with distortion, great. Like anything with distorted guitar, because I had to go looking for it.
Yep.
Just as
I was going to say, there was, like, when I got into Freedom in the 90s, I was also reading a lot about bands I was into, like the Flaming Lips and stuff, and like a lot of grunge bands. And it was like, if you look at the lineage of those bands and what inspired them, they all said Neil Young. And I wanted to understand what that was about.
Yeah, they love Neil Young. See, the thing to me, so how do you feel about the album Harvest then? This is interesting because it's like the big one, but it also is the one that people who are in the know are like, fuck Harvest. So
Harvest, I get confused because is Harvest different from Harvest Moon, or are they the same thing?
Yes, Harvest Moon was the sequel in the 90s, but Harvest was the one that like broke them open. So this is the other thing for me growing up, where it's like, I know he's just like some famous guy from a while ago, like you don't really know. So back in the day when he was like the hot thing and like was like super huge, like you don't really get a sense of that, or I never really had one. But that was the one that was like the one with Heart of Gold and Old Man. Those were the two singles.
Okay, yeah.
That like Needle and the Damage Done too. Man Needs a Maid.
I like those tunes, man. Yeah, I like that stuff. I'm not a guy reading the book. Going back to the book, there's a lot about how there's like a division of Neil Young fans who like the Crazy Horse rockin' guys don't like the folky shit. Or the country shit, but I like both.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, that's like one of the main draws about it for me, to be honest. I find he just has like a melodic sensibility. Like I remember getting that, and it probably is like, you know, not to be too much of like a wannabe hipster or something, but it's like one of the first records that I ever bought, and like probably bought at a flea market or something. But it's like, so you would like set up a turntable, and like that's one you could put on. And to me, it just is the sound of the fall, like that. It's like
Harvest,
that
you mean?
Album. Yeah, it's like owns an entire season and vibe and like color scheme.
Yeah.
But it's like just the way, it's like the classic thing that he does too is like the D to A minor, like that. Yeah. It just sounds so good in every song. It's like both of those tunes. I think that's probably what it is. But he's just got like the way that his.
That's funny you mentioned that, because when I think about Neil's guitar playing, especially the folky stuff, he does like, it's the D, it's the top three strings, like the high E and the B and the G, but he'll play the D, but then he'll go up and play variations of the D all the way up the neck, and that's a total Neil Young thing, right? Like this weird thing on like the 7th or 8th fret that's a D structure, right? Like, but he does that a lot.
Does he? I don't know about. I do know about the, like, he calls it D modal, but it's like dadgad that he puts his guitar in.
Right.
I've been playing with that a little bit lately. Because he does that, like that's what Cinnamon Girl is, and that's how you get that. And it just is like I find like I need a tune to play. I haven't written a song like that, but that one in Pardon My Heart off of Zuma also is like both and it's like, it just like sounds like a cool D chord when you hit it. And then the A minor sounds cool. And then whatever else you can play, also sounds cool. But, it's funny, like
Harvest.
learning. What's up?
But and I love Harvest, and I love like as a guitar dude is where I come at the Neil Young thing from a lot of the time. Like there's that famous video on YouTube of him playing Needle and the Damage Done solo. I don't know if it's Jules Verne or some. It's just him like on a stage. Might be a British show, but it's the one that comes up on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And it's just him and the guitar. It's a short song, but it's just like, wow, man, like that guy, you don't need a 4-piece band and loud amps, although he excels at that as well.
The Massey Hall show from that
on that one tune by himself, right?
What's that?
He's crushing it by himself on that one tune.
Yep. Have you listened to the album that's from Massey Hall from that era? It's like 71, or I think it's just before Harvest came out.
I'm sure I listened to it at least once because I went through everything.
Right. Okay, I listened to it recently. So it's one of the ones from like when they did the Neil Young archives in the 2000s. That's one of the ones that came out. And in the book, did you get to this part? Because I remember mentioning it because I had heard the album, somebody had it. Because I remember like listening to it in somebody's car and being like, "Whoa, that's Neil Young playing guitar." And the dude whose car is in is like this real serious guitar player. He's like, "Oh yeah, he's a wicked guitar player. Like his solos are, whatever, but he's a great guitar player." And I had never heard it before. Like I didn't know that. But that solo show, man, is so good.
I'll have to revisit that one.
Yeah,
That's funny
it's worth
that you say that about like Neil Young as a guitar player, that somebody was like, "Oh, he's a fucking great guitar." It reminds me of like, because I think Neil Young is a great guitar player, but I think he's also like, he's his own category of guitar player.
Oh, I think so too.
Yeah,
but it's like,
which I love, because like I don't like. There's guys who like could probably kill him technically and shred, but he's got his own thing going on, and he is technically proficient.
Yeah, no, you don't need Neil Young to be Zakk Wylde.
Yeah, but that
any more than
like,
you need Zakk Wylde trying to be Neil Young,
Yeah, but that statement that your buddy was like, "Oh, he's a great guitar player," it reminds me of like a few occasions where somebody's pointed out to me, just on a separate note, just because it reminds me is that they say, Bruce Springsteen is a fucking wicked guitar player. Like he's a hot shot studio session guitar player, like from back in the day. It's like, I had no idea, because he always just plays rhythm on his tunes, right?
Really?
Yeah. But
he's
apparently
like, he can play leads, like he's like that kind of guitar player?
Apparently he's a hot shot studio, can lay down whatever, throw some smoke.
Did you watch Springsteen on Broadway?
No.
It's worth a watch. It's like long, and I think I did it in 2 sittings. But of all tunes, man, he played The Rising, which I never like gave a shit about. But the way that he played, because it's like punk rock guitar, it's like drop D, and he's like this one dude solo and like playing his chords in such a way that's like they're not like super complicated chords, but when he plays them, you're like, that's what a dude who plays stadiums plays guitar like. Like that's the sound of, and it's not the shit that I think to do,
Yeah. Do you remember in the 90s when I think it was the 90s when Joe Strummer passed away? They did a tribute to him on the Grammys, and it was like Bruce Springsteen and like Elvis Costello or something, this band doing like London Calling. Did you see that?
No.
It was so weird because it's like, okay, here's all these like mainstream pop dudes doing a tribute to Joe Strummer, which fair enough, they probably did respect him and admire him, but it was like, to me, it was like, what a lame, slow, like brutal version of London Calling these guys are doing on the Grammys.
Oh, like, my God. I mean? No, I did see that. Yeah, on YouTube, right? Is Dave Grohl there too?
I think Dave Grohl was there.
Yeah. I know. I totally have seen that. And that's why I was like, that may have even been before I knew what that song was. And that might have been the first time I heard it. It's totally possible that I knew like 2 or 3 Clash songs, but at the time that I saw that,
Right.
And then you're like, whoa, this song sucks. Like, maybe the Clash suck.
It wasn't great. Yeah, no. But to be fair, there are lots of videos of Joe Strummer solo concerts where he butchered London Calling
Oh,
in his
really?
later years.
It's kind of a weird song. Hey, it is definitely not my favorite of theirs. Which is what makes it more of a lame punk rock Grammy moment.
Yeah. Speaking of the Clash and Neil Young, like if we're talking about Neil Young and sort of my entry into him, when I was going in that deep dive through all the catalog on Groove Shark or whatever.
So was he just a guy on a list? Did he have any particular interest for you?
I think, like I said, it became a point where I wanted to explore the guitar more, and I was getting into more guitar-oriented music.
Yeah.
And Neil Young has a great reputation as like a rebel, and so I didn't want to go down the Eric Clapton rabbit hole or fucking Purple.
I haven't done that one either.
Time. Yeah, so I was like, oh, let's see what Neil Young.
Not enough time in the world.
Yeah, I also had a coworker who was like, oh, you got to check out. Actually, a good sort of frame of reference for this for me is Jason Molina. Magno
I haven't listened to.
Okay, one of my favorite singer-songwriters of all time, but he's a huge Neil Young fan, and when I first started getting into him, all the reviews of his stuff would reference Neil Young and Crazy Horse. That was a big factor for me exploring it too. So when I did that deep dive, I was living in Toronto at the time, every day at work, listening to Neil Young stuff, the whole discography. Judd Crandall back in St. John, he was the biggest Neil Young fan I knew. So I would often text him or message him on Facebook while I was listening to certain songs and be like, dude, what the fuck is this? I remember one time it was there's a fucking 17-minute blues jam, a song called T-Bone, which was just horrific.
On Reactor, isn't it? I've seen people making fun of it online, but I haven't heard it yet.
Yeah, it's like this it's like literally like the E blues riff. And he's like, it's like this guy has the time and the money and the label support to do this fucking 17-minute jam on the E blues riff on a song literally called T-Bone. And I was like, Judd, what the fuck?
Yeah, and
but
it's
at the end of the day, it's like
right?
That's Neil Young, right? Like he can do whatever he wants and he'll do it and the label will eat it and put it out. Which is what's great about Neil Young. But also aggravating if you're trying to listen to his whole discography. This is really weird.
And there's especially the newer albums too, like I've tried, and you're like, he just doesn't care anymore. It's not that he doesn't care, but he doesn't need to care as much as he used to have to.
You know what? I think he still cares. I just think he's an older man, and I think it's harder for him to find his footing and connect.
Yeah. Totally. When you're just rolled out into the middle of it, and your story is like LA and the folk scene and the 60s into the 70s, like coming out of being like a 60s band and rock and roller into being like the singer-songwriter thing. Yeah.
I mean, it was a good move for him to hook up with the Promise of the Real or whatever, and Willie Nelson's kid.
Yeah. What do you think of that stuff?
I mean, it wasn't great. But it was a good move.
That's what
I understand why I did it.
And it's like the band is too good.
Yeah. You know what?
Crazy Horse sounds good on the new one.
The thing I remember about listening to that album was it was the first time I ever thought to myself, oh, Neil's having a hard time hitting those notes.
Yeah, that is another thing about his older voice. The power is not behind the falsetto in the same way.
Yeah.
When you listen,
but it's funny because you could. I feel like I've seen live stuff since where he pulls it off, but on that album he was writing and doing new songs with those guys where he was pushing himself out of his range and it wasn't working quite as well.
Yeah. Well, that's because you listen to some of the old stuff and it's like it's like really like high for a man singing, but it's like pretty powerful or solid.
Yeah.
Whereas like the new stuff, it's like, he is an old man. It's true.
Yeah. But going back to the book, that reminds me of just like I was reading the part very recently where it's about his time in Buffalo Springfield, and they didn't want him to sing because his voice was so weird.
Yeah, totally. So, and so Stephen Stills, it was like he and Stephen Stills were the like butting heads.
It's such a weird story, though, because that's true, because it's like him and Stephen Stills butting heads. But then at the end of the day, the real consensus of that band is the bass player was the dude, Bruce Palmer.
And the guy who totally fried himself.
Yeah, but the larger consensus of the band was like he made the band. But then you get Stephen Stills and Neil Young butting heads to like be not the front man, but like to write the songs and be the voice,
Yeah. And he was the lead guitarist.
Yeah. And then like this whole section about, which I didn't realize till I read the book, that he was in fucking Rick James' band as the lead guitarist.
Yeah, the Minor Birds.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
I would love to hear that stuff, man. There's an album, if you go to his like neilyoungarchives.com or whatever, he's got all of his albums on there, and that is one, but you can't listen to it. I would love to hear it.
Yeah, in the book, they're like, they recorded an album with the Motown label. Yeah, and it was just shelved and never released because Rick James was a draft deserter or something, and it was just like, not cool.
They busted in and took him. They're like, band's done, your singer's going to jail. Yeah, from the Vietnam
I had no
War,
idea that Neil Young and Rick James, there's stories about them just like, they're just walking down the streets in Toronto hanging out, And
like the dude from Eaton's was their sponsor, right? He was like their band.
Yeah, the guy that run the Eaton's department store. Yeah, it was like bankrolling them. That's crazy. Yeah. It's such like a random, like the whole Canadian journey before he went to LA is so interesting because he hated it, right? He wasn't doing well in Canada.
No. But also the thing about like Winnipeg, I found really interesting, the scene where there were a lot of bands and where, Randy Bachman, God bless him, but he was talking about the radio frequencies because of where they are geographically, because of the Great Plains. They get the radio stations from all over North America.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
And you think that it's like, before the internet, like nobody knew what was going on outside of their own house. But like, no, that exists.
There's that great anecdote about how Randy Bachman was the only guy in town who had like a tape delay or something because he made it an old tape deck. Mm-hmm. How does that work? I can't even imagine how that worked on stage.
Probably similar to a pedal. Like, do you think it would be before your amp? It would have to be, right?
Yeah,
unless
but
it was like between the head and the speaker.
But how do you control it? You have to get on the play and record.
Oh, I don't know. And would it only have one speed? Do you think?
I don't know. But at the time, apparently, like all the other guitar players and like gearheads in town were like totally like mesmerized by Randy Bachman because he had this homemade tape delay or whatever.
Weird.
Which is
so. How does a tape delay work? I guess I've never thought about it. Like it records onto a piece of tape and then it just sends it spinning.
I guess. And I understand now if you had like an old tape player, how you could make that work in a studio environment, but like he's using it on stage. How the fuck does he do that with a tape recorder? An old-fashioned tape recorder.
I'd like to see it though, but I bet you would see it and you'd be like, "Oh, that makes sense." But I couldn't build you one right now.
Yeah.
I would love to see it. I would love to play with one.
Do you have like a commercial or music we can do for a second?
I do.
All right, I had to go take a leak, not to put too fine a point on it.
What finer point is that?
And when we come back, we can delve further into this dude.
The boy. Thanks so much for tuning in, folks. If you like what you're hearing, we do this every Saturday night live at 11 p.m. Atlantic on Facebook and YouTube Live. I don't know if we'll stick with the Facebook. Maybe it'll be just YouTube. Maybe we'll move to Twitch. Who knows? learndrums.ca for all the details. And this is going to happen every Saturday night until shows start again. Now back to my convo. Hey, we're back, folks.
I just got the record spinning here. Still tonight's the night, but just finishing spinning Roll Another Number.
It's an album that I don't know well. I've only listened to it, to be honest, like front to back in the last 2 weeks, I would say, maybe 3 weeks.
So are you familiar with Roll Another Number?
If I heard it, maybe.
Okay. That's a great one, man. That's probably like it's the one everybody knows from the album because it's really catchy. And it's a great pot smoking number.
Right. The only one that I can think of, the only one I could hum for you is "Tonight's the Night."
Yeah, that's my favorite. I like Tonight's the Night a lot, but it's not the one that people take away from the album as a whole. I think. Yeah. They take away Roll Another Number.
Okay.
Because it is so catchy.
Right. Okay. So there's like on the album. In my mind right now, there's Tonight's the Night. Then there's the second one with like the ripping guitar solo. Then there's like some piano tunes. Yeah, I haven't listened to it. Like I haven't properly gotten into it.
Let's Go Downtown. That's a pretty landmark Neil Young tune.
Is that on that record?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was one of the ones when I was younger. That was the ones that drew me to Neil.
Borrowed Tune is also a great song.
Don't know. Wouldn't know. Wouldn't know it.
That's the one where, like, I think one of the lyrics is like borrowed. Like I ripped this. I'm using this riff I ripped off from the Rolling Stones. I think that's it. It's one of his tunes, but in the book, in the book, he says that Mr. Soul is ripped off from the Stones.
Yeah, Satisfaction.
Yeah.
The guitar part. Well, it's funny because it's like I remember seeing it. Like we watched Echo in the Canyon. Have you seen that?
No.
It's on Netflix. It's about Jacob Dylan is like the narrator, and it's about like the Laurel Canyon scene.
Oh, that's cool.
So they talk about like the mamas and the papas, and I don't know, Bob Dylan, the Birds. Graham Nash is in it, Jackson Brown. And then there's like the new people are like Beck and Cat Power and Regina Spektor, I want to say. And like Jacob Dylan, they're like the new, they like get together and play the old songs. But why are we talking about that? Something to do with that movie. Though. Yeah, it's something to do with that movie. What were you just saying?
We were talking about how he ripped off the Stones a few times.
Oh, right. Buffalo Springfield were in the movie. There's a video of them performing live, and it's like Stills is like wearing his cowboy hat, and they're doing For What It's Worth. And it's like that is such a fucking landmark tune, man. It's like one of those. It's just like you write it, and it's like, well, you have like one perfect song under, like to your credit. But anyway, to see him play it is funny because he's got the cowboy hat and he looks like a football player or whatever. And then it's a medley, and then they go into Mr. Soul. And so then like Neil Young gets up off his amp and he's like spooky and weird. And anyway, so like listening to that tune, I was like wanted to learn it on guitar, and I was like, whoa, it's like Satisfaction.
I can see how, like, when you talk about him in the context of that band and like Stephen Stills, how they in the book there's like people call him Ichabod Crane.
Who? He's so tall Stills or Young?
Neil Young.
Because he's so weird.
He's tall and lanky, right? Like just like a weird. And he's having like epileptic seizures on stage. So they have to like
all over the place. Yeah.
And it's another thing I never knew about him until I read the book. Like probably a lot of people knew that, but I didn't. That he had epileptic seizures.
No, I didn't know that either.
I get the book open here because I remember when you and I talked about doing this, there were 2 or 3 sections that really like stuck out to me that I thought thus far into reading it that I would like kind of like to read.
Hit it.
And there's one here about he's in Fort William,
Which is now Thunder Bay, modern day Thunder Bay.
Yeah, after he left Winnipeg. So he's like talking about, well, just read. He's like, I think the first real connection with an audience was in Fort William. There were some other times before that where we really got it going, but it started happening more when I left Winnipeg. We really started getting the audiences off because being the unknown, being from out of town, makes the mind open wider. People look at you, they have no preconceptions. They have virtually a fucking clean slate to work with, so you can go anywhere. But if they all know who you are when you walk out in there, then you're limited by who you are to some extent because they have preconceptions of what to expect and they have an opinion. And to me, that really stuck out because I feel like, you know, when I play outside of St. John, or especially when I was living in Toronto and playing around in Ontario, it was, I felt that like it's just so freeing, right? Because you don't.
It's true.
Yeah.
We got that with Glory Glory, man. We were not, Glory Glory Man United was not a cool band around Halifax, but we would go on tour and you're just a band from Halifax, like any other band. You're on equal footing and it's like, well, it doesn't matter also if this show is weird because we don't have to live here, you know?
Yeah.
So you can like kind of go a little more out there because you are just exploring anyway.
Yeah.
And then the audience has no preconception because they just can't.
Exactly. That was one of the great things about doing those, because I played a lot of weird solo shows around Southern Ontario.
How'd you get into doing that?
And I just, when I moved up there, like it was really hard at first because like it was hard to be away from my friends and from like the band, the Penny Blacks band. And then even though I came back several times a year to do tours and stuff, but I knew I had to keep going and doing something. So I really dug into like, how do I improve me as a solo dude?
Yep.
So like, I'd be working on it a lot in our little tiny apartment and playing these weird shows in random little towns around Southern Ontario and in Toronto, wherever you get.
That's part of it though, is like, because then it's like when it gets real, right? Where it's like, well, how do I keep this going?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
It was like I learned a lot about me as a musician and a singer, and like improved a lot and changed a lot about what I did as a performer.
Yep.
And it was really good for me, as much as it was difficult as well. But it's like, but that thing about, I'm playing in fucking Bracebridge in the middle of a snowstorm in some weird pub, and nobody knows. Bracebridge, it's like what do they call it? It's not Prince Edward County, but it's there's a brewery named after it. It's a weird resort area in Southern Ontario with a bunch of
Southern Ontario, I guess.
Yeah, but it's like a bunch of islands and resort areas.
Okay, like where all the where all the I don't know, they call it like 1,000 islands or something.
That I think that's Prince Edward County. This is more western than that, I think.
Okay.
It's about 2.5 hours out of Toronto, I think. West. Anyway, but yeah, like that's a good example. Like playing this random place. That when I got there, they were like, "Oh shit, we didn't think you'd be here because of the blizzard," but I drove it and I was there and I'm ready to play. But it's like just an example of like, here's a weird room with like 4 or 5 regulars who ventured out this blizzard just because I wanted a beer, and now I got to do my thing.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where you like think about like, nobody here knows me. I'm just gonna like really do this and expand on it and try some shit because I don't fucking care.
And the show is just you too.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like it's all on you, which is like it's pressure, but it also is like it's freeing in a way where like you got to make a sound because there's no other sound.
Yeah.
But you also can just go anywhere because there's no. It's like partially like, there's no band to hold you back in a way of like they're not ready for wherever you're going to take. But also it's like if you drop it, there's nobody, like, you're not going to fuck someone
There's
else.
nobody to cover it up. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I rely on that a lot.
Yeah.
I rely on that a lot with the guys I play with, like, because I'm not the best musician, so it's like playing with the
Who
guys.
is?
Yeah, but these guys are great. So like if I drop a note or whatever, it's like, oh, these guys got it, man. They always sound fucking fantastic. So
Yeah.
it's weird when you're by yourself. Yeah, so you got to be on your game because you're so exposed, right?
Yeah, well, and just like, because like you can hear everything, and it's a funny thing too for me. And so for me, I come to that in a similar way, which would, like, it would have been moving here away from Halifax, where I really started to get, and it was like open mics at first, and I would like go down to O'Leary's and like bring my guitar and still like not, not have the nerve to get up on stage, but then you just like you have a couple drinks, you force yourself to do it, but it's like then you're up there and it's all up to you because there's no other sound. And even in a band, it's like you can be like, oh man, I played terrible tonight. Like I missed that and that and that. And you talk to other people, they're like, what are you talking about? Like nobody heard that because
Yeah, nobody gets it. Yeah.
the 99.5% of things that you're doing right, you just like take for granted and don't even notice. And that like 0.5% that's like sketch. That's what you focus on.
It's so true, man. Like that's a huge part of just like being yourself and a musician, right? Nobody thinks about it as hard as you do, or picks out the shit that you do, right?
Yeah.
There's another part here that like I put it on Instagram, like a picture of the page, because it was, again, it's like something I feel like it's a thing in the studio and recording that I felt from time to time, but then I second guessed it. But Neil was like, he's like, where is it? It's like, this is a good one. This is a good quote. So he's talking about how when they recorded Mr. Soul in New York, I think, with this dude, how like they did this quick take and like it was like immaculate, it was perfect, and like, but then like him and Steven Stills had a falling out, and Neil had the bed tracks back in LA, and he started just adding all this shit to it.
Right.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, I ruined it. At the time I thought I was making it better, but now looking back, I ruined it, and the raw original take was way better. But he's got this quote, it's like, I worked all night on Mr. Soul. We did it all in one day. What did I do after that? I fucked it up. So what did that teach me? It teaches me that, and it's all in caps, like right here, right? It's like, it taught me what you do first is the right fucking thing, and just move on. Don't second guess yourself.
And that has been his MO, and I think it's been like both good and bad.
It's true, man. You can way overthink things, and sometimes it's required and it's necessary, but sometimes, like, man, you can blow it by overthinking it and adding too much.
Yep. Oh man, now I'm getting into looking at the pictures. Man, Briggs is a scary dude. What do you think of that cat, Dave Briggs?
Refresh my memory about this, because there's a lot of characters here, man.
Yeah, the producer. Oh, he might have because he only came in after the Buffalo Springfield days.
Briggs.
David Briggs. Yeah, as soon as when Neil quit the band and like went solo.
You might be ahead of me on that one.
Oh, dude, I wrapped it. I finished this like last week.
Okay, I haven't finished it yet, so yeah, you're ahead of me. Oh,
it's like, well, it goes up. I can tell you as far as it goes to the late 90s, like 98. So it's funny. So this is the thing. So for me, one of the questions on my list of questions, if I had one, but I decided in Neil's honor to ad lib the entire session. One of the things I like to do with a musician, someone like this, especially where they've got a huge discography, and I don't know where to start, is like get a book and like read about all of the things that they have done, and then it can help make some sense of the discography. Like I did,
Right.
that's how I got in the Beatles, and they were probably the first one. But since then, I've done like I got a book about REM when HMV was closing. It was like $4, and it just like takes you through their career. And then you're like, no, I know a little bit about every REM album. Like I can place it within what was going on with the band at that time, even if I don't know any of the songs.
Right.
But anyway, so Neil Young for me. So the question, why this book now?
For me,
Yep.
okay, so I think, like going back to what we talked about earlier, how I like through Jason Molina and being a guitarist who was like expanding his mind with, I guess, drugs and alcohol more than before when he was younger. Neil Young and Crazy Horse were a natural place to go for me as a punk rocker who wanted to get into like the expanded guitar repertoire without like getting too glammy and wanky.
Sure.
Neil Young and Crazy Horse was a natural place to go. And I think I was back visiting Toronto, and there's a bookstore there called, is it BMV? It's like a discount used bookstore. And anyway, this was there. And it was like super cheap. And I was like, oh man, that looks good. I'd love to hear more about Neil Young's journey. And I picked it up.
How much did you pay for it?
I wonder if the price is here. Like,
I just took the tag off mine recently. I should have kept it on.
the price isn't on it anymore, but I mean, the retail price listed on it is $25, but I bought it used, so it was less than that.
Oh, I paid $4 for mine. That's why I asked.
Yeah, I probably paid more than that, but it like I've had this for like 3 or 4 years now, but I just started it finally.
Same. I got mine at Loyalist City Coin and Book like last fall, and it just has been sitting on my shelf, and like it wasn't the time. But it was like I was in there, and even like I don't know if you were like this, but like I saw it and I was like, oh, that's like that looks interesting. I like Neil Young. I wonder if that'd be cool. And then I was like, but it's awfully thick, but it's only $4. And then James like, just get it. So anyway, it's like you're supporting a local business, whatever.
Yeah, $4. Come on.
Yep.
And it's like it's thick, but it, like we were talking about this before this thing, but it's like when you sit down to read it, you're like all of a sudden you're so sucked in. 2 hours go by and you're like you've done a big chunk and you don't even notice.
Yep.
It's so interesting. I got a couple more books, like biography books that I picked up that are in the queue after this. Like I got the Joe Strummer one, and the I think Barb Crawford gave me the Sam Cooke one.
Interesting. Those are both two dudes I don't know very much about.
Well, I mean, I know their music, and I know, with Sam Cooke, there's like still some debate about whether his death was a homicide or. So that's kind of interesting, but
oh, really? I don't know any of that.
Yeah. There's a mystery around his death. But yeah, beyond for Joe Strummer, like he's a guitarist for the Clash, and in my opinion, one of my favorite singers of all time. I love his voice, but I don't know much about Joe Strummer beyond that. I watched the Clash documentary, so I guess I know some, but I'm interested to. It'd be cool to read more about Joe Strummer specifically. Same with Sam Cooke. I bet you there's a lot of stuff about Sam Cooke that's interesting. Being a black man who came to prominence in the '60s and '70s.
I bet he had a crazy
and what he had to go
life.
through. Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting. Two of my favorite live albums of all time. One is by Neil Young. One is by Sam Cooke.
Curious, what are they?
Well, the Neil Young one, we mentioned it earlier. Time Fades Away.
Mm-hmm.
one of my favorite live albums of all time. And Sam
Interesting.
Cooke,
I think I've only heard it once.
it's so good, man. That's probably like, if not my favorite Neil Young album, one of the top three.
Really? I should give it a better listen.
That one's so great because if you read about it, he's like, he hated the band he was on tour with. He was still suffering.
Harvest band, right? And he's like, I should have brought Crazy Horse.
Yeah, and he's still suffering over the death of his friends.
Right.
And like every song, it's just like he sounds so pissed off, and they're just hammering through it.
Everybody's like, everybody's getting paid a fortune. The band is weird. He's like suddenly mega successful, and he's like, with this band, it doesn't really make sense. It's like a bunch of people. It's like not like the Beatles where they didn't grow up together. The Minutemen where they grew up together, but it's just like all these dudes who are like pros who I'm hiring, paying $100,000 each in the 70s, whatever that's worth now. I don't know, but
you're right. Like every show, the audience just wanted to hear Harvest tunes, but they played all new stuff, which is another thing I love about Neil Young.
It's wild, man. It's like crazy, actually. Like I don't know anyone who would do that.
Jason Molina did it too.
Did he?
He'd play, like, you go see him and it's like, oh, fuck, man, I want to hear this, this, and this. But he'd play all new stuff. Maybe one tune from an old album that wanted to hear. And the Sam Cooke album, it's Live at Harlem Square, or there's a couple names for it. One Night Stand is the other name. But it's just like Sam Cooke, like a lot of people remember him as like, he's like the smooth. He's so smooth.
That's what I know of Sam Cooke. Yeah, as Mr. Smooth. I don't know that I could even name a song. I'm sure I would recognize one, but
so when he cut this album, he had like gotten really into James Brown, and that era James Brown, like the Famous Flames or whatever. It's like they were like punk rock. They were so fast, so like tight, like just raw,
just cool, and like stripped down and groovy.
Yeah, and Sam Cooke got really into it. So at this point, when they cut this live album, it's like him and his band were doing 2 shows a day, maybe 3 or 4, and just like ramming through it. And he like was on top of his game, and his band was like, if you listen to the album, it's not like the Sam Cooke stuff you hear in the album. It's so raw and garagey, and he's just like, he can't hit a bum note. He's just hitting everything. Yeah. He's like making comments like during the songs between him and riffing, and it's like such a great live album. Like, cool. For me, like the live album as a genre as a whole is pretty bad. Like there's not a lot of great live albums.
I know, a lot of them don't sound good.
No. But this one and the Neil Young one and the James Brown one that's like a classic, and the Jerry Lee Lewis from the Star Club in Germany, like those ones are just like the top.
I've never heard any of those.
Oh man, you got to check them out. They're so good.
Jerry Lee Lewis.
Live at the Star Club in Germany, man, it is like punk rock. It's so they're just hammering shit out at like a high, like they're just operating at such a high level, and like the songs are just so fast. It's like, and he's like toying with the audience and kind of like sneering and making fun of them because they love him so much. He just doesn't give a fuck.
Is it Dick and he like married his 16-year-old cousin? And
exactly.
What? Like did not understand why that would be an issue for his career. It's
exactly.
That's what you do. I don't know.
But the Neil Young one again, like
killer.
Neil Young's like Time Fades Away. It's just like, again, he's like the whole thing is so angry or something. Like there's this weird energy to it.
Interesting. Yeah, I remember that about it. I think I put it on one day just because I didn't know what it was. Again, like just on Spotify or whatever. Because all of a sudden you can just listen to any one of them. Because the other thing is, like growing up, you wouldn't, if you were curious about Neil Young, what are you going to do? Hear a song on classical rock radio, or know someone who has an album, or buy one and like listen to that and see what it's about. But now you can just look up everything. So I put that one on just to check it out. And that's what I remember. I was like, whoa, it's like a weird live album, but it's the only time I've ever listened to it.
Well,
Like
for the longest time,
washing dishes one day.
he like wouldn't let it be released. There was a bootleg that was out for a long time, but he was so disgusted with that period of his life, and he hated the guys in the band, and he didn't want to revisit it or have that album reissued. But it was like just like 2 or 3 years ago, he finally let it be reissued, like officially, even though it was available as a bootleg here and there.
Yeah, I think he said it's his least favorite album.
It's so good though. It's a shame. But
Well,
I understand how you like you being the dude in the center of that can have this formulated perspective and you don't want to revisit it. Sure.
yeah.
I get that.
Yeah. Curious. Curious like a cat. Okay, so why is now the time for this book? Getting back to the question.
I think so. I have this this ongoing pile of books that I got to get to, and this was the next one in the stack. And it's a weird thing to say, but it was also like I felt like a biography is one of those things I can read and read other things at the same time. So when I go to bed at night or I'm on the couch, I'm reading a fiction book or whatever. And this one, I thought, oh, a biography. I'll just keep this in the bathroom and read it on the can.
Yep.
But it's like, oh, I'm reading on the can. I'm taking it off the can. I'm on the couch. I'm in bed. And I just get sucked into it, right?
Yeah, it was one. I agree. I feel the same way about. And I was like listening to an audiobook at the same time. I was like reading this one.
Right.
So it's yeah. And so it's just it just is there in the stack. There's no reason that you decided to reach. You like I gotta learn about Neil Young right now.
No, not beyond like I definitely like since that time 5 years ago or 6 years ago where I delved into his discography at work.
Yeah.
Like, I've been getting steadily more into him and certain parts of his career. I mean, so when it was like, oh, this book's in my pile, like that might be interesting. Like I should get into that.
Yeah.
And it being a biography, again, I had this opinion, like it might not be that big a commitment. I could go at it piecemeal here and there. But once I started reading it, it was like, boom, like I just blinked and I was like 200 pages in.
Yeah, man, that's what I found. I kind of dug into it. I've been reading a lot of stuff that is not music related lately. So to have one, it's like, whoa, it's like a treat. I dug into it too. I was like pretty curious. For me, it was just kind of similar. Like it had been sitting on my shelf, and it wasn't the time. And then like now it's like, oh, well, we're shutting her down. Maybe it's time to crack the Neil Young book and see what that's about.
Yeah.
Scott Young, have you read his book? Murray McLaughlin says that every Canadian kid is like, that's their story.
I haven't read Scott Young's book, no.
No, me either. It's like the hockey sweater or something. It's not the hockey sweater, but it's, he wrote a like hockey sweater book.
I think that like as far as albums, like Time Fades Away from start to finish is the album that I like the most as an album from start to finish. The rest of them I could take piecemeal songs from every one. And like I said, like I built this playlist of the best Neil Young tunes. It's like 87 songs and still going. And I like that to take the best of every album and what I like. But yeah, as far as an album from start to finish, like Time Fades Away is probably my number one.
Interesting. Yeah, it's one that it's one that I don't know at all. All right, let's pause for a second. I gotta take a pause here.
Sounds good. I'll get another drink.
Likewise. I was trying to. I thought I was just like queuing up the thing, but in fact,
Winner.
as soon as you hit that arrow, it sends it to the live feed.
There was another like a section of the book I've been trying to find that I wanted to bring up, and I can't find it. But it was where there was like a lot of quotes or Neil talking about dealing with a promoter or something that was very poignant, and just about the politics of like dealing with an agent or promoter, where he really put it really well. But I can't find it.
What was the idea?
Fuck, I can't even remember. But it was like, yeah, fake news. But it was like he's obviously dealing with the chronic atypical problem with an agent or promoter, like sort of like the politics or the game or the sketchiness of it. But he put it really well about how you have to play the game. And it's a shame to watch it go down, but you need it to get through.
Yeah. If you want to be successful too, in the way that he did, like, it's funny because it's such a different world in some ways, in so many ways, what he went through and like had to do and just the conditions like to make it in music, versus now it's like the career path is so different. You know, in some ways it's not. Like, in some ways, what he did, like, makes more sense in terms of being like, well, I'm going to do music and I'm going to, like, go where the music is. And so he ends up in LA and, like, has his career and like, that all makes sense. Whereas now I feel like, but it also was very obvious that he couldn't do it in Canada at that time. Like, it just wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, he wasn't making any headway for himself. I mean, he did all right with Rick James for a while until Rick James got taken away in shackles.
Until he got busted. But
that was as a guitarist, not as Neil Young.
Yeah. But regardless, like, it's very different today, where that didn't ever seem like the case to me. Like, and especially like the scene became so successful locally, let's say, where it's like, it didn't even seem like, used to be like Hank Snow or somebody like, or Anne Murray. It's like, well, you can't be a singer living in Nova Scotia. You got to like go somewhere. But, you know, post Sloan and like Rita and Friends and stuff like that, you're like, of course you can be a band living here. So it's funny. It's interesting to me, the kind of drive and dedication, but on the other side of it is too, it's like, if you are whatever, it was like the hot sound of the time, but if you're a rock and roll musician right now, like, the major labels is not looking for you. And if you're a young person anyway, it's probably not what you're doing. But do you know what I mean? It's like going down and playing the kind of music that he did, like that kind of success today. I don't know if that's available.
It feels like the major labels these days are probably scouting out YouTube more than live music venues.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, probably. Well, I heard an interesting thing on a podcast recently where this dude who's the guy from SoCan was saying that he's talking about like kind of the new crop of like in like super successful Canadian artists, but like Shawn Mendes, The Weeknd, Bieber, I can't remember who else, but he's like, what do they all have in common? And it's like none of them played shows before they were famous. Like, right. They grew their thing online and, you know, like made their music and grew their thing online and then started gigging versus like the traditional, you know, it's like you slog it out in the bars and then you graduate to the big time. I
feel like a lot of the huge pop stars today, were YouTube, like, wasn't Justin Bieber discovered on YouTube by like Ellen DeGeneres?
By Usher.
Okay, yeah. And I don't know if it, but I feel like, and I don't know for sure, but was Billie Eilish a YouTube thing as well?
No, Billie Eilish wasn't. She was like, it's like a family band, a family project, but they had a development deal with Interscope Records because they grew up in LA and they're homeschooled, and their parents are like, her mom's the costume designer and her brother's the producer and she's the
Yeah,
singer.
but they obviously weren't touring and playing shows when they got signed, right?
No, yeah, I don't. Maybe she was found on YouTube. I don't know how they got that deal.
I'm not saying it wasn't warranted. I'm just saying it's interesting.
Oh no, I agree, but it
a
is
lot
the
of
question.
these things are
It's like
a lot of these things are done through the internet now.
yeah. Well, and also like, not saying it's not warranted either, but like, is it like, are they really like way, way, way better than a lot of other people doing it, or are they like great at their jobs and have the right set of conditions? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
There's like dudes and dudettes who are like making serious money on internet applications lip syncing. More money than you and I have ever seen as musicians.
oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that's not surprising at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Or doing basically what amounts to karaoke. They're not writing music, they're singing over backing tracks, and they're really talented. They can really sing, but they're not making new music. They're singing other people's songs and getting crazy hits and ad revenue and making more money than you and I've ever seen.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe that too. And it's just like, it's more of a comment on like, what is humanity and money, and what do people want to listen to? What do people enjoy? Like, should you be paid to do your art? That's what it boils down to. If you refuse to hack the market.
Well, I feel like not a lot is like essentially boiled down. Not a lot has changed between now and like the 70s. Like people who love pop music and who graduated into the 80s and like synthesized pop music and like music made by machines with pop vocals. There's that faction, but there's still this other huge faction that like organic, analog, live guitar band music, right? And maybe it's not as huge or as big a moneymaker as pop music, but it's a moneymaker if you can get it in front of that audience, right? And sell it to them.
I think like the thing that I've thought for a long time is humans make music, humans listen to music. The thing that I would get frustrated with was always be the idea that we have to quantize ourselves. I think that there is nothing wrong with that kind of music, and it can be great. Yeah, it can be amazing, but I think there definitely, you need to have you can't lose sight of the human.
Well, like didn't Pearl Jam just put out a new album?
Yeah, they did. I haven't heard it. Have you?
No, but I mean, I've never been a Pearl Jam dude, but I know they are a very popular band who has made money and survived as musicians on their fan base and putting out albums and doing shows. And I assume they can still do the same thing. But they're a band who is very much a meat and potatoes, guitar, bass, drums band.
In a way, like, they are amazing musicians. I would say, like, I've had Pearl Jam moments, but I've been, it's been 20 years probably. But like, No Code and Yield are my two Pearl Jam records for sure.
Okay.
Both great, but so the things. So I recently, that may mean 5 years ago, but like got into No Code again. Was like listening to it a bunch. I just was struck by like what a great band they are. Like just how exceptionally good they are at their instruments. And then Eddie Vedder over top is like the surfer poet, and it's like almost, to me it was almost like David Lee Roth, in that it's like you've got Eddie Van Halen, who's like virtuoso guitar player, and like Van Halen is not a band that's ever like really meant a lot to me either, but David Lee, it's like who could possibly sing over what those guys are doing on their instruments? Oh, you need just this guy who's like a clown and is going for it.
You know who could?
Who?
There's only one other dude. You know who it is?
Who's that?
Gord Downey.
Do you think Gord Downey with Van Halen would be a good match?
No, I thought we were talking about Pearl Jam. Gord Downey with Pearl Jam. Totally.
It would be amazing. Yeah. Yeah, they would be good. But so this is what I thought of Eddie Vedder to Pearl Jam is similar to David Lee Roth to Van Halen in the sense that you need the guy who's just like willing to be that dude, you know? And you're right, Gord Downey could play with Pearl Jam. Yeah,
but if you're talking Van Halen and David Lee Roth, that's a one of a kind thing, because who the fuck with Sammy Hagar? He couldn't live up. Like, it never worked with Sammy Hagar.
No, I don't think so either. But it's weird, right? Where he's like, he is not the vocalist that Eddie Van Halen is on the guitar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's nowhere like near the musician as a singer. But yet it doesn't stop him.
Van Halen is one of those bands, they like when they split with David Lee Roth, it's like game over. Like, you shouldn't continue. It's the same with fucking In Excess. They shouldn't have bothered. It's the same with fucking AC/DC.
Are you talking smack about JD Fortune right now?
Who isn't? You can't do In Excess without Michael Hutchence. And also AC/DC, that whole fucking debacle with Axl Rose. Give me a break. That was ridiculous.
Have you heard any of that stuff?
I saw videos of him in a wheelchair with his leg up in a... Come on.
I haven't heard any of it. I thought it was Dave Grohl that did that.
He might have done it for a bit, but like, really, man, like, okay, it's bad enough. AC/DC pulled off a miracle moving beyond the dude that died, Bon Scott or whatever, and getting
a second guy. Yep.
Yeah, and they pulled it off. Like, they built another thing with that guy.
Yep.
But it's like, when that guy's hearing goes or whatever, it's like, you're done. Like, don't try and keep going, and you know what I mean?
It would be like the Tragically Hip after Gordon. It was like Sublime with Rome. But like Tragically Hip after Gord Downey. Fucking Zeppelin was done when the drummer died.
There's a lot of cases like that through history, man. But you know what? People want to keep making money. They want to stay relevant. Like the Misfits,
and they also have to do something. You know, it's like, you're not dead. What are you gonna do?
The Misfits are one of the most hurting cases of all time, man. Like, those guys really wanted to keep it going after Danzig was done, and they played in St. John, and probably you saw them in Halifax or wherever.
No, I didn't. I was at St. FX in my first year. I had a poster that I grabbed in New Glasgow. They played at the Forum with Guy Smiley and somebody else.
Yep, that was the same tour they played St. John. It was crazy, man. Like, Michael Graves is a good singer.
Yeah,
but they shouldn't have called it the Misfits. If you want to do another horror rock band, fine, do it. Change the name. But they were so set on just building on the name the Misfits and getting the money out of that equity.
When it's not at all the same thing.
No, and they kept, when Michael Graves left, it got down to a 3-piece, and like I don't know if it was Doyle or whoever, just kept trying to keep it going. It's like, dude, give it up. It's done. Like, can't you admit, like, don't you have enough self-worth and like sort of like belief in yourself as a person, musician, to do something new and not have to hang on to these old tunes? Like, let them live on the way they are.
Yeah.
Don't keep trying to tie
Danzig's
yourself
not worried about it.
Yeah,
Danzig's not worried about it, and he wrote them.
Well, eventually Danzig came back around, and they did do it. But there was like Doyle, man, give it up. Like, move on. Like, I think he had another band for a while, Christ the Conqueror or whatever. But I guess it wasn't making enough coin for him because he had to go back and incorporate the Misfits name and make some real money.
It's how you make the money, baby. The Misfits name. Mm-hmm. It is how you make a lot of money. There's a lot of money to be made in the Misfits name nowadays. All right, my friend. I think I got to sign off.
Well, this is a lot of fun, man. Thanks for inviting me. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think we probably really illuminated the masses on the story of Neil Young.
Yeah, I think we cracked the code on Neil Young.
Yeah.
There's going to be so many Neil Youngs now.
Last word on Neil Young. Nobody ever has to talk about Neil Young again because we've really laid it all out.
And if I catch someone, you know what I'm going to say? You know what that's going to be if I see someone talking about Neil Young?
Yeah. But it's not just that. We're gonna assemble a real hard-edged crew from the south/north end of St. John, and they're gonna get beat down if they're talking about Neil Young on any level.
That's right. It is going to be a massive.
Yeah.
On
you have
their
a hashtag beatdown graphic?
I don't. I'd have to make. It needs to be a transparent one so that you can. You know, as a graphic designer, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man, maybe. Yeah, maybe you just got yourself a new gig, unpaid, my friend.
I will send you a hashtag beatdown.
Hashtag beatdown. I would love
PNG.
that. Yeah. Fake news. All right. Jason Ogden.
All right, man.
Thank you so much for being here. Such a fun time. Always a pleasure. Talk to you soon. All right, fun times. Wasn't that fun? I had fun. We had fun. Did you have fun? I hope everyone had fun. It's important that this is fun. If it's not fun, it's no fun, you know? You got to keep it fun. Just have fun for the kids, you know? In seriousness, thank you for listening if you made it this far. LearnDrums.ca for all the details. I don't know what's going to happen with that website. It's just a repository for all my stuff right now. This show, Hitmakers After Dark, broadcasting live at 11 p.m. Saturday nights. At 11 p.m. Atlantic. I'm on the Atlantic Ocean. 10 p.m. Eastern if you're in one of those time zones. If you're in Europe, it's different again. But a podcast you can listen to at any time. And you can also watch this stuff on our YouTube channel. Still getting the hang of it. The live video show. But it's fun. It was only meant to be a half hour, and this one turned into 2 hours. So we're just going to freestyle it. And maybe we'll change the time. Maybe we'll change the platform. The podcast will always be right here. Thanks for listening. Hope you're enjoying the warm weather. Don't poison each other. All right. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Oh, if you like the show, leave us a rating or a review. That stuff helps, so I'm told. Okay, thanks. Bye for real now.